Every second, your senses are bombarded with millions of bits of information, but your working memory handles only a tiny fraction at a time. If you tried to deeply process every detail in real time, your brain would crash. To prevent that short circuit, your mind relies on mental filing systems. To do this, it builds schemas and prototypes, internal blueprints that let you instantly categorize the world and run on autopilot. Psychologists Alan Newell and Herbert Simon observed these biological limits force us to use mental shortcuts. They called these heuristics, informal, intuitive strategies that allow us to make decisions without the heavy lifting of deep memory processing. These shortcuts are efficient and essential for survival, but they build a rigid mental architecture. By defaulting to automated patterns, we often become resistant to the deliberate, analytical effort required to solve problems that don't fit our existing categories. This illustrates the representativeness heuristic. If you see an eccentrically dressed person reading poetry, your brain immediately categorizes them as a poet based on a stereotype, ignoring the statistical reality that there are far more accountants in the world. Then there is the availability heuristic. We often judge how likely an event is based solely on how easily examples come to mind. Watching a shark attack on a screen makes the threat feel imminent, even on a perfectly safe beach. This is why we overestimate the frequency of airplane crashes. They are vivid, highly reported events that are easy to recall. Meanwhile, we underestimate more probable dangers, like asthma, because they lack the same memorable, media-saturated imagery. We also surrender to the authority heuristic. In this vintage ad, a tobacco company uses a doctor's uniform to bypass your critical thinking. We are wired to trust information simply because it comes from an authoritative position, even when it contradicts common sense. In each case, the brain successfully trades accuracy for speed, keeping us moving quickly and efficiently through our daily routines, but it leaves us ill-equipped to solve complex obstacles that require more than a mental shortcut. This leads to a state called functional fixity. As this diagram suggests, when we apply past heuristic logic to a new problem, we get stuck in a loop, continually applying the same old thinking and getting the same old failed results. To see how this happens, look at the candle problem. Pin the candle to the wall so wax doesn't drip, using only matches and this box of tacks. Most people struggle because their brain categorizes the box strictly as a container. This mental block makes it almost impossible to see the box as a potential structural tool. Overcoming this wall requires you to actively rebel against your own programming. You have to stop looking for a shortcut and start deliberately deconstructing the problem space. The first step of the problem-solving cycle is analysis. This involves breaking a complex problem down into its raw, unassigned elements, stripping away the labels your brain wants to put on them. Next is divergent thinking, the act of generating a diverse assortment of alternative combinations for those raw elements. This is the opposite of your convergent heuristics. It's a deliberate effort to find multiple possibilities, rather than one obvious answer. Finally, through synthesis, you find the solution. By emptying the tack box and pinning the box itself to the wall, you've created a shelf for the candle. You've put the elements together in a completely new, useful context. True problem-solving is not an intuitive act. It requires the self-discipline to pause our fast-thinking shortcuts and force ourselves into a divergent, analytical approach. Psychologists Robert Sternberg and Todd Lubart argue that these same mechanisms of divergent thinking and analysis are what drive sustained innovation through their investment theory of creativity. It begins with a buy low phase. Creative individuals spot the hidden potential in ideas that the heuristic-driven masses have ignored or undervalued. J.K. Rowling, for instance, focused on a concept that had been repeatedly rejected by others. Then comes the sell-high phase. The creator applies expertise and divergent thinking to develop that idea until its value is undeniable. When Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, he was presenting the synthesis of technologies that others hadn't yet combined into a single significant contribution. Your brain is biologically wired to take the path of least resistance just to survive the day. But to solve complex problems or achieve genuine originality, you must consciously choose to take the long, difficult way around.